Ooh, didn't see that coming. Hey folks, it's been a while since I've done a Doctor Who list. About the closest I've come for the past few months has been things like ranking the episodes in a series as I've been going through the overdue Doctor Who. But let's get back into nice, juicy lists of stuff. I made that sound actually really unappealing. Moving on. So, I put this one as a vote to the Patreon supporters, gave them a few options. They have opted that this is going to be a countdown of the top 10 twists of Doctor Who. I did initially consider including Classic Who into this. The thing is that Classic Who didn't do a ton of twists. Classic Who did cliffhangers a lot, almost every episode actually, but they didn't do a ton of really big twists, and the ones that they went for were usually confined to the story that they were in and not, big massive upheavals the way that modern era Doctor Who does. So I'm going to stick to modern era for this. I've got 10. These are all good in my estimation, and they were honestly difficult to order, but let's get going. Number 10, the Cult of Skaro reveal. So you really got to roll your head back to appreciate this twist, because at the end of Series 1 of Doctor Who, at the end of the Parting of the Ways, the Daleks got wiped out, dissolved into atoms. So far as we knew, no Daleks were left. And then we come into the two-part finale for Series 2, and we already have the reveal of the Cybermen as being the ghosts. So we have our big villain for the finale, but wait, there's this weird sphere, this void ship thing. What is going on there? And then it opens up, and out comes Daleks, the Cult of Skaro, and this was well before the overuse of the Daleks, where they just kept coming back year after year after year after year. So having it here, this was a really good impact, and it felt really rousing at the time that it happened. And the reason I consider this to be a twist is we'd already had the villain reveal. We weren't expecting another one on top of that. I say that counts. Oh, I should probably say, before I get too much further, spoilers, I guess, for episodes that have already aired, but yeah, you should know that. Number 9, Missy is the Master. This one I do like. I put it a little bit lower for a couple of reasons. Partly because I know a lot of people who figured this out well in advance. I wasn't one of them. I didn't figure this out on my own, but I'm also not that great at predicting twists. And if I've called your twist in advance, you kind of screwed up, because I can spot obvious twists out of nowhere, and this one wasn't obvious enough for me to grab. And I do part of this is in hindsight. I love Missy so much, and the way everything sinks in, and again, a little bit like the one I just did, it's a twist on top of a twist. So it kind of catches you off guard because you think you've got some breathing room, because we've already had the surprise reveal of the Cybermen, which we didn't know we were dealing with in this finale. And then Missy drops the bomb. Short for mistress. Couldn't keep calling myself master now, could I? And you just, the look on Capaldi's face also helps really sell this look of, oh no, oh God, no. That helps. Sometimes it's not just the reveal, it's the reaction of the characters in the scene. Number 8. I don't know if other people would count this as a twist. I'm going to count it as a twist, though. The narrator for the end of time is revealed to be Rassilon, because the Time Lords are coming back. So at the start of End of Time Part 1, we have a narrator, and it's a commanding voice, but it's just a narrating voice. It's a little odd. Doctor Who doesn't deal in narration a ton, and never really from characters we don't know to some degree, but you kind of forget. And then the end of the first part, the voice comes back again, and then you see the face, and it's like, oh my God, that's Timothy Dalton. And then you see the Time Lords behind him. Holy crap! And especially at that point, we didn't have the full context of what this meant for the Time Lords to be coming back. Granted, we didn't know it was specifically Rassilon at the point of that reveal, but that got confirmed the next episode. I love this so much, and this actually was also high on my list when I did greatest cliffhangers. I count this as a double whammy. It's a cliffhanger with a twist, and it's a good twist. Also a good cliffhanger. Number 7. The reveal of Ruth as the Doctor in Fugitive of the Jadoon. So this is the most recent one that is on the list because, spoiler, the Timeless Child isn't on here. But this was pretty well done. And this is not the first time we've had this sort of reveal in this show, but a lot of it is just that I don't think any of us were expecting this to get pulled a second time. And then in addition to that, Ruth had just felt so ordinary. And she really did feel like a completely normal character who just needed a little bit of help. And so to see her attitude turn and to see how commanding she became once she revealed herself to be the Doctor, that does a lot to sell that twist. Again, a lot of times with these twists, it's not just the idea that has to work. It has to be sold by the script, the direction, the acting. And this one gets on the list largely because of the acting. Because Jo Martin, I want more time with her as the Doctor. I want it. Number 6. The Doctor reversing back through his timeline in The Big Bang. Now, I'm on record as not really liking The Big Bang. I consider it to be an exercise in tying up plot threads, but it doesn't actually have an interesting story of its own to tell. I find it very unengaging. I don't really like it. But props where props are due. As he's flashing back through his own timeline, and he gets to the point from earlier in the season with Flesh and Stone, we find out that something that had been noticed, I remember people noticing this, but largely getting brushed off as a continuity error. Because there's a point when they're in the forest with the cybernetic trees, it's the oxygen farm. In the original episode, the Doctor had lost his coat, and he goes off and, he says he's going to take care of something, and then he comes back and he starts comforting Amy, and he's got his jacket back on. And a lot of us have written that off as a continuity error if we caught it at all. But the reason is because this is the version of him going back through time and having this comforting moment, and it completely recontextualizes that conversation where now it has a totally different meaning from what it had before. And it functioned pretty well previously as well. It was a little bit, but this recontextualized that entire scene, and that is good. That is clever. That is a long game twist at that. That was well executed. Here we go. Top 5. The reveal of River Song's identity. This one, again, this comes down to execution. Because actually the concept and the idea of who River Song is doesn't excite me all that much. I don't think the idea that she turns out to have been Melody Pond, Amy and Rory's daughter, grown up and reconfigured and manipulated and twisted around and just having a really screwed up life. That in and of itself, I'm like, okay. But it's the way that it's sold. It's the way that it's revealed. It's the music is a huge part of what sells that. It's the performance of Alex Kingston as River Song. It's the performance of Karen Gillan as Amy. And all of that culminates to a really just uplifting reveal. And this is coming off a tail end of an episode where it feels like everything just fell apart. And then you find this out and you're like, oh, well, she's going to be okay then. To whatever degree you consider River Song to be okay and to have had an okay life. But that A Good Man Goes to War is a good emotional roller coaster of an episode. It's up, it's down, it's up again. And that's a good note to end that episode on. Number 4. Flesh Amy gets dissolved. So this was at the end of the two-parter, The Rebel Flesh and the Almost People. So we had this entire adventure dealing with these gangers and this goop that can basically be used to synthesize people. And we've also established that they can possess the sort of knowledge and the memories, but they kind of need some degree of link, or at least depending on how the technology is functioning, the way they're designed, they need to have some kind of link to the original host. And we find out the Amy they've been traveling with for a little while now isn't really Amy. It acts like Amy. It thinks it's Amy. But it's not. And the doctor has to dissolve her in order to sever the connection and find the real Amy. And how scared she was, how scared Rory was, and how the doctor had to bellow at Rory to step away from what he had thought was his wife so that she could be melted. That was harsh. And what was cool about this is because the twist fed into the overarching story of that particular series. This was series 6. But it comes off of the two-parter we just did. It builds directly off of everything we've just learned in the story we just had. So it's coming off of that, using that to feed into the greater story. That's really well done, because I think I can think back to, say, Series 5 and the episode where Rory died at the end of the two-parter with the Silurians. And nothing about that fed into that episode. Him dying fed into the overall story of the series, but that scene at the end of that could have been tacked on anywhere. It wasn't an organic component of that two-parter. This was. So this actually, in a way, feels like a much better execution of Rory dying or appearing to die for real in the series before. I hadn't thought of that until I just said it. Number 3. Four knocks. Because the entire lead-in to the end of time, he will knock 4 times. And then the 10th Doctor, David Tennant, will die. Now the knocks has been built up primarily to be the Master. Because he already had the 3-beat thing, the drums. That had already been established from, Series 3. So we've already got that. It gets reiterated because he shows up and he bangs on this sort of cylinder in a junkyard 4 times. The rhythm of 4 gets reestablished later on. Everything points to the 4 knocks being the Master. And then Wilf on the other side of this little glass door, stuck in a room that's about to be irradiated. That reveal, and as much as I hate Tennant's little hissy fit he has after this, I do think it's a really good performance, him watching his face fall when he hears those 4 knocks, realizing that he didn't escape his fate. And here it comes. Not to be delivered by his greatest enemy, but to be delivered by someone he is trying to protect. And someone he cares about. That's good. Number 2, the War Master reveal. I mentioned when I talked about Joe Martin's Doctor that wasn't the first time they pulled this trick. This was. And whereas with Joe Martin's Doctor, while that still made the list, because I think it's well executed, it wasn't as original. This, holy crap. Just the when he turned around and the credit comes up, John Hurt as the Doctor. Of course, we didn't have full context right away. And we had to chunk of time to speculate. One of my earliest videos on this channel was me speculating about how the War Doctor fit into this stuff. And I was wrong, but just the fact that he even existed was fascinating and a massive rewriting of so much that we understood about the Doctor. And that, it's really hard to hinge a twist that big at the very end of your final episode of a series. Because either it's going to get everybody super invested, super stoked, or it's going to leave everyone going, what? None of this makes sense anymore. I'm out of here. And this manages to just get it just right. I mean, like, who did not want to find out what the hell that meant? But it doesn't quite take the number one spot. You could argue it as being number one. And I wouldn't even really debate you on that. But for me, the number one twist in Doctor Who was from Series 3. The episode was Utopia. And it was the reveal of the Master. Derek Jacobi playing this sweet, affable professor character, getting along with the Doctor, trying to help humanity. A little bit confused, a little bit befuddled, wonderfully sweet. And then he opens that watch. And the look. He does that turn to camera. All the warmth has just drained out of his presence. And the other thing is, a bit like where we started with the Cult of Skaro, part of the reason that was such a good twist was that we hadn't established the dogs keep coming back. Here, while it wouldn't have been the biggest leap to guess, it wasn't a firm pattern yet that all these old villains were going to come back. And this one was the one that kind of cemented it, because at this point we'd had the Daleks, we'd had the Cybermen, now we've got the Master. Like, we're getting the biggies back in. But we didn't know going in that the Master would be back, and that he would be revealed like right under the Doctor's nose. He was right there, and the Doctor didn't know. And even if you don't know who the Master is, which honestly, first time I saw this, I didn't really. I had gotten into the show, but I didn't watch a lot of Classic before getting into this stuff, and certainly not at that point in the show. And I knew who the Master was because I'd looked up some stuff about Classic, so I heard the name and I knew what that meant, but I didn't have any investment in the Master, and that thing still hit me like a freight train. And if you know who the Master is, I think it hits you all the harder. And I think that's the best twist in Doctor Who. What do you think is the best twist? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. How much you want to bet people are going to think of one that I completely forgot about? I'm going to go, oh God, I was a moron. Wouldn't that be a twist? But there's also the usual stuff to do. Like, subscribe, pass this around, share this video. I have a Patreon, as I mentioned at the front end, linked below, all that stuff. But you don't have to do any of it. End of the day, folks, I mean, you're the council. I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.